No.
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 Yes, I do.
Yes.
No.
I think it is a very, it's maybe as athletic as a sport maybe, but I think a lot of how the dance is judged and performed, that it's really based on someone's opinion of whether when they're competing. It's really the competition part that I don't really see as much of a sport.
My reason being is because I think, well, first off, when I was a child, I thought, you don't have to practice for dance. You don't have to learn, you don't have to stretch. You don't have to, get physically ready for dance. You just dance.
I don't think dance is a sport just because having danced myself, I feel dance is more of an expression of your body in an art form. So whereas a baseball player has to actually follow a list of rules on how they're actually supposed to play the sport, on a dance side, you don't. It's more of what comes to you naturally rather than somebody telling you how to do it.
I feel like dance is not a sport because if you look at its original intent, dance is for the sake of entertaining. And if you look at schools and all the most prestigious organizations that are just for the sake of teaching dance, they do it to get you jobs on Broadway and to get you jobs at venues where you're going to get paid to entertain at a high level.
I really believe the main reason I think that dance is a sport is because it requires skill and practice and time and dedication, as well as a sport would contain those same aspects. You have to practice if you're playing a sport, and you have to practice when you're dancing. You have to have a certain skill set, a certain level of skill for a sport, and you have to have also a level of skill for dance. You can't just go out there and play basketball and think you're going to make it being the worst player on the team, and you're not going to go out there and dance just without practice and think you're going to be the best one out there on the dance floor. But yeah, as far as dance being a sport, it's a very strong belief that I have that it is a sport. You go into competitions with sports, you go into competitions with dance. You win trophies in sports, you win trophies in dance. You get MVP in sports, you might get MVP in dance. So, I mean, it has the same aspects. It's on the same line as sports. So, I mean, why not? Why can dance not be a sport?
So with dance, there's a lot of athleticism involved. You have to be coordinated. You have to know how to do the moves. Depending on the type of dance, it's really, slow and controlled, or it's really upbeat and fast, so you're out of breath a lot. But dance, there are competitions for dance, all the time. The competition part of it definitely makes it a sport to me. The athletic part of it makes it a sport. The coordination involved, all those things together to me make dance a sport. I've danced all my life, so maybe that's part of why I think it's a sport. But the only difference for me is that, like with just about any sport, at the end of it, you're out of breath, you're exhausted because you've been doing running, a lot of running. Dancing, if you're doing ballet, you're not necessarily going to be like exhausted when you're done, but it takes a lot of precision and you're mentally exhausted maybe. But with hip hop or any of the other faster dances, you're exhausted when you're done, just the same way that you are sports. So, it's definitely something that takes a lot of talent. So I would say yes, definitely a sport.
My name is Norman Christian Howard, and boy, I specialize in so many different styles. I don't have one where I stand out. I have training in ballet, tap, jazz, lyrical, modern, contemporary, swing, ballroom, Latin and American and traditional, you know, just about anything. If there's some style of dance in a show I've done or been taught, I kind of know how to do it or can teach myself.
Amanda Kinseth Rogers, Amanda Kinseth Rodgers. I have done a lot of dance through my lifetime. I started with the regular tap, jazz, and ballet, moved on to lyrical and hip hop and funk. And then in college, I studied a modern dance program, and nowadays I do more ballroom and Latin.
Okay, my name is Wanda Thorne, and I teach lots of areas of dance. I teach tap, ballet, jazz, lyrical, hip hop, musical theater, point. I teach, and my husband teaches gymnastics here.
My name is Robert Rogers. The dance style that I specialize in is ballroom, Latin, partner dancing, whatever you want to call that.
My name is Nikki Walker, and currently I am a Zumba instructor.
The main reason I got into more ballroom styles is because my husband is a ballroom instructor and dancer, and so that we do together, and that's wonderful. I moved to Spain, and that got me more into the Latin dances, and plus I'm getting older, so it's a little harder to do the hip hop and the break dancing and the stuff like that. You can still do it a little bit, but you can't quite move like you used to. Plus, there are places to actually go and do a lot of salsa and merengue and stuff like that, so it's fun to be able to go out and do that type of dancing.
The honest truth is, I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand with why I started dancing as well. I started dancing because of the girls. And I'm not lying. I got invited to a hip-hop class when I was in high school. I took the class, and it was great. The studio I went to, they didn't have very many guys, so they asked me to stay on for the spring recital. They were doing a modified ballet version of Beauty and the Beast. So I stayed for that. I started taking classes the year after that with ballet and tap, and you know, ballet is the basis for pretty much any style of dance. It teaches you core, balance. It's the most anti-natural movement for your body. That's why it's so difficult, but knowing ballet will help you into any style. So I think ballet is, because I get the girls and the basis for all styles of dance, is why I started taking class.
From a very young age, I danced. I started dancing at 3 and danced all through high school and through college. And then after becoming a wife and mother, just my priorities changed, and I was moving for a little bit of time. And after my children got old enough to where I could leave them for a bit, I started taking a Zumba class. And it felt so good to move like that again and move my body like that again, and so I quickly became addicted and got my license to become a Zumba instructor.
Long answer, short answer. Really, I had an opportunity to get a job actually teaching that came along with training. It was a fantastic opportunity. It was something that I fell in love with right away. I actually didn't go out seeking it. It just sort of came to me, even though I didn't even realize how much I loved dancing, even before that point. So.
I'd have to do some math on that one. Well, I started at 3. I danced until I was 20. And then I recently picked it up again, and I've been teaching Zumba for 5 years.
Professionally, since 2000, so that'd be about 15 years. Before that, recreationally, for another 10 years.
Well, I'm going to be 39 on the 21st of April, so a couple weeks away. I started when I was 17. Most professional dancers, performers start when they're 4 or 5. I didn't. I got a late start, but I got thrown right in the advanced classes. So I had nothing to do, no way to learn but go from the students who were 10 times better than I was, so it made me push myself. So 17.
I've danced ever since I was 8 years old. I'm not going to tell you my age, but it's been quite a while now.
What day is today? Currently, I teach dance once a week, and I try and do as much as I can with the students. Working with my Dancing with the Stars partner, usually when we rehearse, that's twice a week, 2 hours at a time. If I'm in a show, it's constant rehearsal on and off stage, at home, in my living room, in the grocery store, at the dance studio, anywhere there's space and something is in my head, I'll go ahead and start to do it.
Oh, I used to practice a lot more. We used to do lessons and teach lessons a few times a week. Now, because we have 2 children, we don't dance as often. I also used to help instruct a hip-hop class, and that was a weekly or twice a week class. So recently, not quite as much, but I would say at least a few times a week is the way to go if you really want to stay proficient in your dancing.
Nowadays, not as much. When I was doing it as a professional, practiced every day. A few hours a day, usually even before work. Work was a 10-hour day, so that also was practice as well. So as a professional, you can easily say you put in a 12-hour day of practice.
I have 4 45-minute classes per week, and then I do have time outside of class preparing for those sessions.
Oh, absolutely. I go to the gym as much as I can. I'm actually a fitness instructor, so I teach a variety of classes. I teach all the beach body classes like Insanity, Turbo Kick, Plyo. I teach a Piloxing class, which is a combination of Pilates and boxing. I'm big into yoga and just started body pump. So pretty much anything that involves physical activity and exercising, I love it.
I go to the gym. I try and work out 5 to 6 days a week. Again, being I say performer, there's a longer age range, but as a dancer, the life of a dancer is short. Again, I'm almost 39 years old, and if I'm auditioning for a dance job, most of the guys that I'm auditioning are 18, 20, 21, so I have to work twice as hard, so that's why I try and stay in shape. As having a teacher, not so much. I'm used to being on the teaching end, but it is great anytime I have an opportunity to take a master class or somewhere from someone I know. They bring their own training and their own ability to it. So I don't take very often from other teachers, but it's not because I don't want to.
I do. I like to be physically active and moving, so even when I try my best to fit in 7 times of exercise a week. So I do go to the gym. I just like being outside, kayaking, taking hikes in nature, biking with my family.
Yeah, absolutely. You do need to go to the gym. You need to tone yourself. Personal trainer you can use. Also outside coaching. As far as dancing is concerned, you do want to bring out other experts to help you with what you're doing.
Dancing is like, CrossFit, swimming, gymnastics, all in one. It uses every part of your body. I would say to someone who doesn't think it's a sport, let me teach you a 3-minute dance combination of straight dance, and then we'll have a conversation about if you think it's a sport or not.
I definitely would consider dancing a sport just because of the physicality that's involved in it. Moving your body, that's getting your heart rate up. You're using your body as an instrument, and so that's not something that's easy to do. It takes training and practice, and you're not going to get a routine the very first time around, just like you're not going to throw that perfect pitch the first time around. It takes practice in order to get it right and to be a good dancer.
Give it a try. It is absolutely a sport. If you think of all the things that I suppose you would define as being a sport, something that requires a team or something that requires physical skill or strength, dancing requires all of that, and in some cases even more so. It is a team sport, and especially if you're talking about ballroom dancing, but I think even if you're talking about team dancing or group dancing, you do have to respond to the other people that are there. Physical skill, I think that goes without saying. It requires a lot of repetition, a lot of practice, just like any sport. So let's say you play football. If you want to be a good quarterback, you're going to throw that ball 1,000 times. If you want to do a foxtrot, you're going to do, let's say, even the most basic step, a feather step. You need to do it 1,000 times, and you need to do it over and over again. There is absolutely no doubt that it's a sport. I mean, that's just not even a question in my mind.
I'd like to see some of the athletes come try some of this stuff that these girls do. It is very much a sport. It takes training, it takes strength, it takes stretching, flexibility, and their routines are tough.
Okay, well, a sport is a physical activity that's competitive, a competitive physical activity. Dancing is a competitive physical activity. It takes, skills, and you really have to be proficient. You have to practice. It involves a lot of physical activity, and I absolutely think it's a sport. I have played pretty much every sport out there: soccer, volleyball, basketball, track and field, and they all require physical abilities, activity, practice, exertion, and so does dancing. You definitely have to practice, you have to work. You can't just walk out onto a dance floor and do it. I understand if you think that maybe going out to a club and kind of, moving your shoulders and going back to sport, that's not necessarily a sport, but when you compete in dancing, then it absolutely is a sport. You have to try so hard, you have to practice, you have to devote your life to it, just like any other sport. And I have worked just as hard on dancing and cheerleading. I was a competitive dancer for many years, as also a competitive cheerleader, and we did dancing with that too. And that is definitely a sport. We worked just as hard and did as much stuff in there as, soccer or basketball or volleyball.
It takes a love and a desire to perform. I mean, I'm not a natural dancer. I had to teach myself rhythm, teach myself balance. I have horrible feet, not made for a dancer. I've got hyperextended arms, not good for a dancer. I've got bum ankles, not good for a dancer. It's a desire and a love of performing and dancing. I mean, I'm definitely not the best dancer by any means, but because I continue to push myself and dance with my students and learn multiple styles, I'm open to anything. It's really it's about where your heart is, and if you have the desire to do something that's expressive. I mean, that's why in musicals they sing and they dance, because you have words, but you come to a point where you have to express yourself more, and that's when they bust out into song and dance, because that's an expression that you can't just express with words. So if you want to dance, you got to be expressive and passionate and emotional and not afraid to take a risk. I mean, sometimes you feel very unnatural and you get embarrassed and nervous of dancing, but you have to get over that if you just want to let the music be a part of you.
It takes a lot of patience and learning. It definitely takes rhythm, and you need to understand music. Fortunately, I understand music, but some people have to work at it. So if you start from the beginning, then there are a lot of different skills that it takes to actually learn how to be a dancer. And it just takes having fun too. I think that's the biggest thing about it, is not only are you exercising and getting a good workout and competing, and it is a sport, but it's a lot of fun, and it's very rewarding and exhilarating when you get off of the dance floor or when you win the competition or whatever it is. You walk away from it and you really feel good.
Well, first of all, you have to have the desire, and you have to have the love of music and ability to move and stay with the music. and listen to your teacher and learn the correct technique?
I mean, it does take a little bit of passion, and again, I think that's the same with any sport. If you love football, you're going to practice, you're going to want to be out there, you're going to want to be better at it, or even the simplest things, but same thing with dancing. You have to love it, you have to want to do it. You know, the nice thing about dancing is that you don't have to do it as a professional. You can just go out and dance and not even be that great and still have a really, really good time. Obviously, if you want to do it competitively, you have to put in the time, you have to put in the effort. There's going to be pain and crying and injuries and all that. But
I would say that it takes heart to dance. I think that you have to have a little bit of natural rhythm and ability. I do think that that is something that you can learn as well, but you have to dance from your heart. You have to be willing to sweat and move your body and not feel like an idiot. Just let loose and just let it all out there.
Unfortunately, a lot of people, from what I've heard, and people that I work with and outside of dancing, they think it's a feminine thing, and I'm not afraid to say it. A lot of stereotype is that all male dancers are gay, you know, that's unfortunate that people think that way. You know, dance is a aggressive, all body workout. It takes stamina, it takes core training. Anyone who does anything to do with core, knowing that if you're going to try and spin 8 times in a row, if you're trying to kick above your head, if you're trying to balance on your toes for 10 seconds, that takes all the strength training. I don't think people think it's a sport because it's not traditional method of, I mean, I'm not going to say movement, traditional definition of what someone thinks a sport is, but there are competitions everywhere across the world all the time for dancing. I mean, what defines a sport? A ball? I mean, a net? What defines a sport? Something that requires you to be athletic? Yeah, so I don't know if a sport has the exact definition of something other than where you play as a group or you do something for competition or to reach a goal at the end. So, I don't know. That's their, goodness, what's the word I'm looking for? Their ignorance. Yeah.
I think that the real question maybe that, or the conflict is whether it's an art or is it in a sport. I'm going to cop out. I'm going to say it's both of those. It's definitely an art and it's definitely a sport. Again, I think you just simply need to ask what is the definition of sport. And I think people just see it as just repeating a series of movements. They don't really realize the amount of practice and the amount of effort that you have to put in to successfully do that series of movements, even the most simple ones.
I would say that most people don't consider dance to be a sport just because it is usually classified as an art, as a form of art. And if you think of other forms of art, such as singing or being a great artist, a painter, or good at sketching or whatever, their instrument is their voice or their hands or whatever tool they would need to perform that art. And a lot of times in those activities, you're not getting your heart rate up. I mean, you're not having to be as physical. So I would say that the conflict of dance being categorized as an art would keep it from being classified as a sport.
I think the people who don't think dancing is a sport have never danced. Plain and simple. Because if they've actually done competitive dancing, then you know it's a sport. And look at all the people who are out there, you know, especially from other countries like Russia, where it is your life over there. They are all about it. It is definitely a sport over there. It is like your life, your sport. You eat, breathe, and live dance over there. It's a little different over here, but it definitely is still a sport for the people who are involved in it. And I think if those people who don't think it's a sport, if they actually tried to do it, then they would maybe understand a little bit more. Take Dancing with the Stars, the show, for example. Those people probably didn't think it was a sport until they got into it, and then they realized, it's just some pretty intense stuff. I think you take anybody who doesn't think it's a sport and put them in there, they might change their opinion.